This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. If the name Gronkowski doesn't ring a bell, maybe you're not a Patriots fan, where Rob Gronkowski and quarterback Tom Brady held the NFL spotlight for almost a decade. Both went to Tampa, and after 2 seasons, Gronkowski called it quits with the Buccaneers. Well, if you ever wondered what kind of family he came from and what it was like growing up in Buffalo with 4 brothers, his mom Diane is here to tell us what's in her book entitled Outnumbered, how an average supermom raised 5 professional athletes. Diane, what are the chances?
I don't even know what the chances are. I mean, they said that, I had a better chance of winning, the lottery for millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars than of all 5 of them. You're lucky if you get one to even make it, even to go that far, even to get all the way, because there's so many obstacles in the way. There could be, if it was, let's say it's football, um, maybe you're the best quarterback ever. What's in the draft that year? They're not looking for quarterbacks. They're looking for defensive linemen. Or then you get out there and you get hurt, or you get hurt in college and then you're done. And it's hard. It is very, very hard.
Are they very competitive? Are they competitive with each other?
Oh, yes. Everything was always a challenge. Who can get up the stairs faster? Everything faster, better. Yeah, they still do that when they're together.
Are they supportive of each other at this point?
Oh, totally. Yeah, they're all intertwined with businesses, with helping each other out with businesses. Chris has his ice shaker business, which is, the insulated cups. He's been on Shark Tank, but he also then, Gordy with his powder drinks, Chris will do like a bundle, like, hey, you buy the drink and the cup together, so they help each other out.
So what made you write this book now?
I actually have a ghostwriter, Sue Monshaw. She wrote the book. I knew nothing. So this was a big challenge for me. I mean, it was like going way outside the box for me to do something like this. But you know what? It worked out. It just took a while, a long time, 6 years. But we learned a lot along the way. And I just wrote it, with Sue, because people were just saying you should tell stories about, the kids growing up and stuff.
I mean, how many jock straps did you have? Jock straps and smelly socks. Oh my God, when my kids played football, oh, the smelly socks and the pads. Oh, jeez.
Well, what is worse is hockey, because they all played hockey. I did 20 years of hockey too, with all 5 of them played at the same time, at one point. But, you talk about expense, you talk about the stench. Oh, the hockey just is totally disgusting, way worse than football. I mean, football, they'd stand, come home and you just put the stuff out in the driveway and hose it off because it was so full of mud. But hockey, football, basketball, baseball, I did 20 some years of all of those sports all added together. All 5 of them were playing at the same time. So
Were you strict?
no.
Because I would imagine that there was a lot of people that wanted to be around your sons, that totally built them up and played up to their ego. I mean, was it hard keeping them grounded?
My kids are just not materialistic, any of them. I mean, my oldest son, whatever can fit in his car is basically all he wants to own. He just is not. He'd have the same pair of pants, and every time he came, he's like, "Can you sew these?" Like, really, there's not much left here for me to sew. I've sewn it, I've sewn it so many times. He just, no, I like these though. Like, can we get some? No, I want to wear these. None of them are materialistic. Rob got drafted and he bought a used car. He doesn't drive around, even though there's an article out there that I read. I don't read a lot about my kids because I don't like the negativity and people trying to find things to say that are bad, and it's not even true. But there was an article about Rob and how he owned all of these cars. And I'm like, what is this? I'm reading and showing all these cars he owned, and all of these cars that hundreds of thousands of dollars each, and he owned 5 of them. He didn't own one of those cars, not one. He drives around in his Ford Explorer, which is what I drive around in, and they're 4 or 5 years old, and that's fine with him because that's what he needs. So, no, not materialistic. Any of them. They are very, very grounded. They know what's important. I mean, it's funny because even Chris, he won't buy anything unless it's on sale and he has a coupon.
How are you average? An average supermom is in your title.
I know. because when I walk around, I'm like, you don't know who I am. I walk up and I stand in line at the grocery store to pay. And same as every other mom does in raising their kids. We all love our kids. We all do stuff for our kids. I just happen to be running around taking my kids to all these sports things, and then went with football, except my oldest son did baseball. And they all play baseball. I did that for over 20 years. I had like some summers I had 13 baseball teams going at a time, because they would be on the house team and the travel team and the all-star team. And more so in the book, the idea is it was an average. I did everything that all the other moms did. I just maybe had to do more of it because I had more kids and they were, more active. Everybody loves their kids and everybody does what they can for their kids. And it's kind of the idea that, what, this is just what my kids decided to do and it worked out for them. But one injury, one bad decision, you're in the right place at the right time, and their whole lives would have been different. And maybe one or two or three or four or five of them maybe wouldn't have made it to where they are. But things worked out and for what they wanted. But they sure worked hard to get it. Nothing was handed to them. Nothing. Um, I'm just making plans now to do this really big book signing. Now that I know that Rob retired, I'm gonna try and pin him down, and start doing. There's a restaurant nearby here called the Clam Bake. It's right here in Florida, right near us. The owners are from New England, so we go there quite often. And maybe I'm trying to work out something right now to do some real big, not just a book signing, but dinner, like a raffle for, a jersey and maybe some footballs and the book signing with me and Rob and maybe, when any of the other boys that could come, but to charge so much per person to come in and everything's included. But the profits would go to some designated charity that Rob would want. Like usually it's something to do with the kids. All five of the boys have this Gronk Nation Foundation, which they don't take any money from it. All goes to children's organizations all around the country.
That is great, Diane. That's probably the best part of you writing this book. Thanks so much. Colleen Giordano is a remedial math and resource math teacher in a New Jersey elementary school. And while others have claimed to be able to make math fun, Colleen is convinced she nails it every single day. Her book is entitled It's About Time.
It really, truly was a labor of love. In my position, I get kids hooked onto math by creating fun opportunities and a lot of silly stories. And I tell them, I don't write them. And this one particular story that I started telling, the kids and my colleagues just love so much that they just insisted that I write it down. And I actually never wrote the story. I was tape recorded telling it and played it back. And little by little, I wrote it and I wrote it. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So,
Math has got to be one of the hardest things to teach kids.
but if you do it in the approach that I do it, where you don't really teach it traditionally, I make up songs, I make up rhymes, I make up silly stories, we play games. You learn in ways that you don't even realize you're learning. You're just having fun. It's About Time is about telling time, but it's more about how you have to learn to work together and compromise. Big Hand and Little Hand go to school to teach children how to tell time. And Big Hand thinks he's more special because at 3 o'clock, the children yell and cheer. And Big Hand believes it's because he says o'clock. But what Big Hand and Little Hand don't realize is that at 3 o'clock, the children go home. It had nothing to do with them and their clock. And then basically Big Hand thinks he's more special and tells Big Hand he's really not needed to tell time. And a disaster of o'clock day does not go well. When Big Hand realizes that he's made a mistake, he has to go and apologize to Little Hand. And they start compromising in the steps that it would normally take in a silly way to learn how to tell time on an analog clock. The Little Hand is green, which children relate to go, like a traffic light. And the Big Hand is red, which also, like a traffic light, means to stop. After they have their disagreement, Little Hand says to Big Hand, if you want me to come back and work with you, I am little and I want to go first. So the children associate green with go. So the Little Hand goes first. Then when the Little Hand is quote unquote stuck between two numbers because he's little, he likes little things. So he's going to pick the smaller number. So as an example, if little hand is in between 2 and 3, you pick 2 because he's little and he likes little things. The big hand agrees to that. And then big hand does really get a good idea that when the little hand is in between the 12, the biggest number on the clock, and when the smallest number on the clock, that the little hand will pick the 12. And the reason behind that is to remind children that big things should protect and help little things, not bully and tease them. That's the job of the little hand. In the book, Big Hand and Little Hand also like to play hide and go seek so that Big Hand has the opportunity to count by 5s. And that helps the children remember that if they start with the number 1 on the clock and they count each individual number till they touch the big hand, then they will know how many minutes there are. So they work together to get the job done. But through the course of this, they learn about forgiveness, that everyone is important, how not to bully. And my grandmother was my go-to most important person who always kind of knew how to just cheer me up, mostly by giving me chocolate. And I was able to sneak that into the story as well. When you write a book, especially for educational purposes, you kind of have to try and get a couple of topics into it. So with some thought and some help, I was able to use my telling time story, but then incorporate the anti-bullying as well as the everybody matters, as well as cooperation. So it just kind of all fell into place. And at the end of the story, Grandma says it's about time to the big hand and the little hand that they learn how to work together and resolve their differences so that they can teach children how to tell time.
That is great, Colleen. And by the way, the book includes a workbook for teachers. And I wish you were around when I needed to learn math. Thanks, Colleen. Ella G. Nakos is going to be a senior in high school, and already she's a published author. But if the full-time author thing doesn't work out, library science is going to be her backup. She writes short stories for school and on her own time, and her children's book, Pride Leader, is one of them.
I wrote my book when I was younger, and mostly the inspiration came from what I was feeling at the time and some thoughts I had. I wrote the book in an elective writing class at my school. So I think that was also some inspiration about how the environment helps me write more because everyone in the class was writing something. My story is about a lion cub. His name is King. And the story starts in his childhood, but it progresses into his adulthood. And during the story, King asks himself like important questions about his life and other people's lives. And then the main center of the story is about how King wants to be the pride leader of his lion tribe. One character, his name is Abuye, and he's kind of like a character that has conflict because he bullies King in the story, and there's conflict there, but a lot of it has to do with his family. And I think that's a lot more questions that come in that King asks himself about his life and other people's lives and how events can really dictate how people act around each other, which is a big part of the story. King and Abuye get into a fight because Abuye is upset that King is like kind of ignoring him about how he's not responding to some of his taunts. And so he acts out in that regard. The way I wrote it, they settled it by having that fight and then it ending, but then it goes into Aboye's history with his family just to give some more context. Unfortunately, his mother has died, and Aboye is the son of the pride leader of their tribe right now. So it kind of just has this conflict where Aboye is grieving, but he also wants to try and be a good son for his father and that kind of dynamic.
So the pressure is mounting on him. He's feeling responsibility and he's feeling pressure. So is that what your book is? That the whole point is to show how different things can happen in our lives. You don't know what's motivating you sometimes when you're angry or frustrated.
Yeah, I would say that's a big part of it. Everyone's life is complicated and messy, and how people don't always know their feelings around how they act. But even when that happens, there can still be moments of joy, even in those bad times.
Very nice. Now, I guess all of your friends know you wrote this book, right?
Yes, they do. I just finished making a flyer that I'm going to move around like my neighborhood and some more neighborhoods around my area to get the word out. My father made a website where it's easy to go buy the book. It has the description and about me and the, price of the book.
You're not tweeting about it.
To be honest, I'm not that active besides some of my favorite social medias. I think a lot of it can just be a lot of drama that I don't really want in my life, to be honest.
So you're doing it the old fat. You're 18 years old and you're handing out flyers. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it can cause a lot of problems.
Well, that's an understatement. Good for you, Ella. An RN and EMT educator, it's not surprising B.J. Ginn wrote a novel called The Healer, an Anam Cara novel, but there was more to it than that, right? First, explain Anam Cara.
In Celtic lore, it basically means soul friend. It's the one person you trust the most with all of your secrets. So I think it was more boredom than anything else. Literally, I was dealing with a heartbreak, and I bury myself in novels when I want to like leave this world, and I had nothing else to read. So literally, I just was like, okay, I'll just write my own story, and I just kind of started with it, and it turned into what it is.
So, who's Cassie Sinclair?
Cassie Sinclair is one of the main characters. She has the gift to heal supernatural beings, which she is obviously unaware of until she gets pulled into this paranormal world. She is torn into this world because she has a similar look of another character that's. She basically is the spitting image of a character that the Blue Bloods are looking for. And they capture her thinking that she was that other character. So Dimitri, he is a red-blooded vampire, and he has been searching for a woman who was responsible for killing his family. And in doing so, he gets captured by his enemies and is tortured. So when they capture Cassandra, thinking that she is Kara, in order for her to prove who she is, that she's just a paramedic with the city, she has to heal. She has to basically take care of Dimitri.
But she looks just like the woman that tortured and killed his parents.
Correct. Yeah, she has a very similar look, and that's the reason why she ends up getting captured initially. She's technically proving herself to the Blue Bloods that she is just a paramedic and that she's just a human being and she's not this Kara character. When she's working with Dimitri and trying to help him survive, she discovers that she has this gift to actually magically heal him, not just with, modern medicine, but also with her own energies. There is a larger story involved. There is this war going on between the Blue Bloods and the Red Bloods. And the Red Bloods' primary goal is to protect humanity, and the Blue Bloods' basic goal is to destroy it. So there is this ongoing war going on that has been going on for centuries. And the hope in the end is that, the Red Bloods will defeat the Blue Bloods altogether, and, the world can live peacefully.
Oh, the world can be a better place.
The world can be a better place. Exactly. I'm working on, trying to get an Instagram and Facebook up and running. So right now it's just sharing my author's portal and, sharing, with my friends and family and trying to ask them to do the same thing for now.
Okay. But it sounds like you really enjoyed writing this book.
I did. It was a way to get away from the real world for me. And as I'm continuing on the story, it's basically serving the same purpose.
Does the story kind of unfold as you write?
It does, actually. It's more, I don't have plans per se. I have research, and that's it. And then as I'm like actually writing the characters and building the storyline, it just starts to kind of unfold in itself, and the my overactive imagination just kind of goes wild with it.
And that makes you feel good, right?
It does, absolutely.
They say writing is like so therapeutic.
That's so true.
And not necessarily writing like this isn't about you. You know, your boyfriend who jilted you wasn't a vampire, but
Exactly.
going into this fantasy world was, worked out for you.
Absolutely.
That's why more people should write. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Alan Gillette wrote an essay for his Issues in Education class 8 years ago while he was getting his master's, and it is the basis for his book, Diverse Ways to Improve Higher Education.
I'm kind of disheartened by how less attention is given to the classical and traditional style of education, and so much more emphasis seems to be more on vocational skills. I realize the reasoning of it, and I even wrote an argument in support of that to some extent, because by using the mind and the body and equating with the real world vocational skills, you use more facets of the neurology of the brain. But on the other hand, can any use of hands expand the intellect and reach the heart the way academic subjects can, such as history, literature, religion, psychology, anthropology, and so on? And that was my final conclusion. In universities, I don't like to see too much emphasis on vocational ideals. I don't like to see development of trades and skills replace too much of the traditional European American agenda of classical education. That's what I feel is happening.
Learning critical thinking, complex reasoning.
Yes. Another way I was critiquing modern day universities and then hoping to improve higher education is we've replaced the art of critical thinking with ideological indoctrination.
What do you mean by that?
Instead of giving creation scientists or intelligent design an inquiry, we teach evolution as fact, or instead of teaching capitalism as an alternative, some professors teach Marxism as a fact, and it's just issues like that. We need to be more focused on a Socratic dialogue in a debate instead of being too dogmatic on one side of the issue and indoctrinating students with that.
I think, are you referring to, like a lot of people complain that, universities have gone too far left? That's what you're talking about?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I was trying to avoid left to be too much politically controversial. Yes. I'll expand on it more. Marxist indoctrination, communist indoctrination in our universities, it contradicts our American tradition of a free marketed economy, compromises student loyalty, doesn't really encourage student loyalty from the American way, American loyalty, patriotism, and to embrace capitalism, that reinforces the competitive spirit much more so than communist indoctrination, because capitalism helps prepare students to deal with the business world and global market, and also to be too dogmatic about communism and not free market capitalism. That detracts from Socratic dialogues, that is, controversial thinking where you search the truth by examining both sides of a debate.
Fair enough, Alan. Thank you. A fan of true crime shows and horror movies, Darrell Wilkins was inspired by serial killers in the news to write his first published book entitled Prey.
It's about a former detective profiler. He helps the FBI solve cold cases, which he's good at. And what he found out, a lot of the copycat murders was connected to his past. So with the help of a mysterious and sexy FBI agent, they've been trying to catch this guy. But the more they figure him out, he's one step ahead of them. So when they finally do catch a break, he finds out the killer is connected to his past.
And the FBI agent who's working with him, she's got some stuff going on too, right?
Yeah, she has a secret of her own. It's kind of a twist, and that's what makes it interesting. He's not your typical serial killer. So I threw something else in there.
How does he operate, this copycat killer?
He's leaving clues. He's part of the detective's past. He's pretty much something that they're connected to, related to. He's getting back at him, and he's some of the cold cases that he's solved. It's also kind of connected to the serial killer. He's like a shapeshifter. Well, he's human, but he's also something else. It's kind of like a combination true crime, thriller, horror. He's just doing random stuff, like the campers in one chapter that was related to the highway cannibal killings. He using that as a way to flesh out the detective, leaving him clues. So the detective's looking at that, he said, okay, this reminds me of a cold case that I worked. But the detective, he's like, okay, but why? So he's getting the clues together. Like if he see a couple sitting down smoking, drinking, having fun, doing that, he'll kill one and then take that person's form and trap the other one. So catch him off guard.
Okay, and somehow all of this is related to the detective that's trying to catch him.
Yeah, good and evil. It's about redemption, and the other characters in the book, they're like family. They become like a family to each other. So it's like, but they're not related. So even though you're family doesn't have to be related.
So true, Daryl. So true. I think I have friends I actually like better than my family. All right. Thank you. We are out of time. Can you believe it? Thanks for being here on the Page Publishing Book Club. If there's anything you'd like to know about the authors, their books, where to get them, go to pagepublishing.com. And if you missed anything, just download the podcast at 710WOR.com. Till next time, enjoy your summer. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.